My dad's holding it now. Right. He keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying to keep him set up.
Alright.
He's got a mouthful of blood, I don't want him...
He was on the bin on the other side of this gate.
He's jumped over these fences and stuff like that. And he's up
Move
here.
away, mate.
He's obviously... He's fallen from there and he's slipped from there.
There's other shooters left over there, mate.
What's your name, mate? Huh? Has anyone been hurt other than him?
Yeah, me. He's grabbed my brother, he's took my turban off, started grabbing my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruises.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me. Someone flag these down.
Got this stud.
Right, let's get you out of there, shall we?
I was in bed asleep. When they just find me up there, look, someone's attacked me.
I can't breathe.
Grab his other arm.
Help. So I've just come running, we only live on St Denny's Road.
Right.
Come running round the corner.
What's happened to you, alright?
This stud.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? I don't think you have, mate.
Look, that's what, and then I'm like, you've got mouthful of, I want to keep you up, keep your...
Hand?
I can't breathe.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
This is like
can't breathe.
times this has happened to us. We've been walking, we parked, we live around the corner. Multiple times we've had people racistly
90
attacked
foot.
us, nothing happened.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so
Where
let's
is it
just
you
check
think you've
him.
been stabbed? In the face? Oh no, but we have to check, don't we?
Right.
In the face?
Just get these back off, get their details and that, and I'll keep hold of him.
Should we...
Right, keep you on your side, mate. You better retrieve then.
So go.
Saying to him, I'm keeping him on his side. We were sat up when we had him here, but he didn't like it. What's your name, mate? At the moment you are under arrest, and that's for assault, so you do not have to say anything, may harm in defence. If you do not mention main questions, it's up to which you later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, alright? It's going to be sick, I think.
What's his name?
I just want you to call it.
Yeah, we've got this male, he's
just
been beat up. Are we able to get an ambulance, please? His pupils aren't even reacting. Yeah.
On the 3rd of September 2025, an 18-year-old finance student from Chafford Hundred in Essex named Henry Nowak was walking home in Southampton. He was the first in his family to go to university. He'd been out with his college football team. His blood alcohol level when he died was below the legal limit for driving. He never made it home. He was stabbed 5 times with a 21-centimetre blade by a 23-year-old named Vickrum Digwa. Henry Nowak bled to death on Belmont Road. Not instantly, not quickly. He lay on the ground, conscious, speaking. He told the people around him exactly what had happened to him. He said it 9 times. I cannot breathe. 9 times. On the 28th of May 2026, a jury convicted Digwa of murder. On the 1st of June 2026, Judge William Mousley KC sentenced him to life in prison with a minimum term of 21 years. The judge described Henry in his sentencing remarks as, quote, a much-loved, kind, hard-working and ambitious young man, devoted to his family and with a bright future. He was careful and principled, full of humour, warmth and promise. That should be the end of the story. A young man murdered, a killer jailed, justice served. But what happened in the minutes between the stabbing and Henry Nowak's death has become one of the most ferociously exploited news stories of 2026. And I want to forensically examine what actually happened, because what the politicians and the broadcasters are telling you is not the full picture. So next I'm going to talk about what actually happened at the scene. Let us go to the facts as established in court and confirmed by Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary's own public apology. These are not disputed. After Digwa stabbed Henry Nowak 5 times, he and his family did something extraordinary. Digwa's brother called 999. Digwa called his mother, and in that 999 call, they claimed Digwa had been racially abused, punched, and had his turban knocked off. Think about that for a moment. A man has just committed a murder. His immediate response is not to flee, not to stay silent, not to claim he does not know what happened. His response is to call the police and present himself as a victim of a racist attack. Digwa's mother arrived at the scene before the police. She took the murder weapon and hid it at the family home. She was later convicted of assisting an offender. And Digwa, in a conversation in Punjabi with his brother at the scene, agreed to claim self-defence, even though, as the judge confirmed, he had already confessed to his brother that he had stabbed Henry 3 times, including once to the chest. When officers arrived, they had one version of events in their heads, the 999 call, and Henry Nowak, bleeding on the ground, did not fit the picture they had been given of who the victim was. So they arrested him. They rolled him onto his front, they handcuffed him behind his back, they detained him for assault while he was dying. The bodycam footage confirms what happened next. Henry Nowak told the officers he had been stabbed. One officer replied, "You've been stabbed? Whereabouts?" "I don't think you have, mate." That's the Hampshire officer bodycam audio released on the 2nd of June 2026. Henry said 9 times that he could not breathe, and while he was saying it, Digwa stood nearby and told the same officers that Henry, quotes, had not been stabbed and was exaggerating. Mark Nowak, Henry's father, described what that means. Quote, "Instead of being treated as a dying victim, the police arrested him for assault. That was the last thing he heard." And that's Mark Nowak, the father of Henry Nowak, on the 1st of June 2026. The temporary Deputy Chief Constable Robert France subsequently issued a public apology. He confirmed that officers had been deceived by Digwa's, in his words, quotes, "wicked lies." He also confirmed that within 3 minutes of engaging with Henry, the officers had removed the handcuffs and begun first aid. The medical evidence shows that Henry's injuries were not survivable regardless of the delay. The Independent Office for Police Conduct is now investigating. The officers are currently being treated as witnesses, not suspects. So next we're going to talk about why the officers failed and what the evidence actually shows. Now here is where I want to be precise, because precision matters more in this story than in almost any other currently in the news cycle. The police have not said that those officers stood back because they were afraid of being called racist. That narrative has been constructed after the fact. It is not supported by anything on the public record. The IOPC investigation is ongoing and will examine what actually motivated the officers' decisions. Until it reports, anyone claiming to know the officers' internal reasoning is speculating. What the evidence does show is something simpler, and in some ways more troubling, because if the failure was ideological, it can be fixed ideologically. But what actually happened is harder to fix. Those officers arrived with a ready-made narrative. The 999 call gave them a story. Digwa was the victim, Nowak was the aggressor. And when the scene in front of them did not match that story, when Nowak was on the ground saying he had been stabbed, they interpreted it through the lens of the story they already had. A guilty man, deflecting, resisting arrest. This is confirmation bias, not racism, not ideological bias. A basic and well-documented cognitive failure under pressure. The human brain, when given a narrative, tends to interpret ambiguous information as confirming the narrative rather than challenging it. Every psychological study on this subject says the same thing. It is not a character failing. It is a feature of human cognition that professional training is specifically designed to overcome. And here is the most damning part. It was not one officer that failed. Several officers attended that scene. Not one of them broke the narrative long enough to physically check whether the man on the ground was injured. The stab wound to Henry's chest was described in court as difficult to find. But that is the argument for checking, not against it. What Digwa did was genuinely unusual. Stabbers almost never call 999 claiming to be the victim. It is a rare and specifically deceptive tactic that those officers had no mental framework to counter. That is what killed Henry Nowak alongside Digwa's blade. A catastrophically deceptive killer and officers who were not equipped to challenge the picture in front of them. This is a training failure, a supervisory failure, a systematic failure in dynamic risk assessment and preservation of life protocols. So next we're going to talk about the Kirpan and what the law actually says. Digwa used a 21cm blade described in the court as a Kirpan, basically a ceremonial blade associated with the Sikh faith. Under the Criminal Justice Act 1988 and the Offensive Weapons Act 2019, practicing Sikhs are legally permitted to carry a Kirpan in public as an article of faith. The exemption exists. This is the law. But that exemption has one absolute non-negotiable limit. The moment a Kirpan is used as a weapon, the moment it is brandished, the moment it threatens, the moment it harms, the religious exemption is gone. Entirely, immediately. Digwa was convicted of murder. The exemption did not protect him. Some politicians are now calling for the Kirpan exemption to be scrapped entirely. That is a legitimate policy debate for Parliament to have. But conflating that debate with what killed Henry Nowak is a deliberate misdirection. The legal status of the Kirpan did not cause the officers to arrest Henry. Digwa's lies did. The knife law is relevant background. It is not the story.
Think of this. The biggest fear a police officer now has going about his or her duty on the street is the fear of being reported for having acted in a way that was racially biased. That fear, now greater than dealing with a dying man living on the ground. Henry's family have responded to this in just the most extraordinarily dignified way. But I suggest the rest of us respond to this with pure, cold rage. This is wrong. All the values and standards of living in a free country where everybody is judged equally before the law have been trashed and thrown away.
So next we're going to talk about the exploitation and what is being done with this story. Now let's talk about what happened after the bodycam footage was released. This is where I have a serious problem. Nigel Farage issued what he described as an emergency address to the nation. He described the case as proof, his word, that we are living in a two-tier culture where the rights of white people matter less than those of ethnic minorities. He stated that an accusation of a racial slur had been treated more seriously than an act of murder. He called for the British public to respond with his words, quote, pure cold rage. He called for an end to what he described as anti-white prejudice. On LBC, Nick Ferrari used the case across broadcasts on the 29th of May and the 2nd of June 2026 to platform the same narrative, featuring figures including Farage and Robert Jenrick, with claims that anti-white prejudice influences police responses. I want to be measured here, and I want to be fair. Is there a legitimate conversation about policing culture and how officers handle complex scenarios? Yes, absolutely. That conversation is what the IOPC investigation is for. That conversation is what better trained programs will address. That conversation needs to happen. But that conversation needs to be grounded in what actually happened. And what actually happened does not support the two-tier policing narrative. The officers did not defer to Digwa because he was Sikh. They believed a 999 call. They made catastrophic assumptions under pressure. They failed Henry Nowak through inexperience and inadequate training. But Farage's framing requires you to believe that those officers consciously prioritised a Sikh man's complaint over a white man's life. There is no evidence of that. None. And the IOPC investigation that will determine the facts has not yet reported. The judge said something important at sentencing, direct from the published judiciary remarks. Quotes, "You have brought shame upon your family, your community and your religion. Your actions have stirred up racial tension in Southampton and across the country, which have made many Sikhs worried about their own safety, even though they have done absolutely nothing wrong." And that's Judge William Mousley KC, sentencing remarks on the 1st of June 2026. The judge also addressed Digwa's racial abuse claim directly. Quotes, "I am sure that Henry said nothing racist. You are the only person to make that claim, and it is at complete odds with his previous character." That is Judge William Mousley KC sentencing remarks on the 1st of June 2026. The racial tension in this case was created by Digwa's lies, and then Farage and Ferrari took those same lies, the lies the judge condemned from the bench, and amplified them to a national narrative about two-tier policing. They did Digwa's work for him. The people who know this best are the Nowak family themselves, and they've explicitly rejected the framing. Quote, "We do not want his death to be used to create further division, hatred or tension. We want his story to make our streets safer for everyone." And that's Mark Nowak, father of Henry Nowak, on the 1st of June 2026. And quotes, "Let me be absolutely clear. We hold Vickrum Digwa solely 100% responsible for the brutal murder of our son." And again, that's Mark Nowak, father of Henry Nowak, on the 1st of June 2026. Even Digwa's own family issued a public statement through the Sikh Press Association, explicitly stating that the tragedy should not be used to inflame division or hostility towards any community. Both families, the victims and the killers, united in asking that this not be weaponised. And still the broadcasts continued. So next I'm going to talk about why this matters. Henry Nowak deserved better. He deserved officers who checked on him. He deserved a media that reported his death accurately. He deserved politicians who used his case to fix the actual problem rather than win a culture war. The actual problem is this. Young, inexperienced officers failed to apply preservation of life protocols when confronted with an unusual and deliberately deceptive scenario. That is fixable. It requires better training, better supervision, honest assessment of what went wrong, and the IOPC investigation being given the independence and resources the Nowak family have specifically requested it receive. The race-baiting narrative does not fix that. It obscures it. it makes it harder to identify the real failure and correct it. It inflames communities, including the innocent Sikh community that had nothing to do with Vickrum Digwa's crime, in ways the judge himself found troubling enough to address from the bench. It also, and this should be said plainly, serves the interests of the people doing it. Farage is not calling for better police training. He is not calling for faster IOPC investigations. He is calling for pure, cold rage. That is not justice for Henry Nowak. That is a recruitment drive. If you want justice for Henry Nowak, real justice, demand better police training, demand proper IOPC accountability, demand that the officers' failures are examined honestly and that systematic gaps are closed. Do not let politicians and broadcasters turn his death into a culture war trophy. So in conclusion, Henry Nowak was a real person, an 18-year-old finance student, the first in his family to go to university. He had a family who loved him. He had teammates who went out with him that night and came home without him. He told officers around him 9 times he could not breathe. One of them told him he probably hadn't been stabbed. The least we can do is be honest about why nobody listened, and make sure the people using his name right now are not using it to make the problem worse. This is Deck Heroes. Please subscribe. If this video made you think, please share it. And thank you.